This is the Transparency Podcast Show.
I love your hat. Can you tell us why you're wearing this hat today?
Well, I actually just got off of DJing at Long Beach Pride, so I had to be festive for Pride. And, you got to put a chandelier on to have fun.
Yeah, I love it. And your shoes, so...
I'm giving gay cowboy,
So tell us a little bit about yourself, like your backgrounds and your transition journey.
Yeah, so born and raised in Los Angeles. I've been in activism probably about 11 years now. I've worked as a DJ. I've worked as an event producer. I've worked as a board member for LA Pride. I'm also the current chair of the West Hollywood Transgender Advisory Board. Very excited about that. And I'm all around just working really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I met you, you were in a play. Do you have any acting passions or any sort of practice in that field?
Yeah, so I've always loved acting. My biggest challenge with acting is always remembering the lines. Definitely. I always get nervous when I go to remember the lines. I can give the passion in the character, but oh my God, when you're reading those lines, I just forget everything that needs to be said. And
Yeah, so I was so amazed because play you cannot do cut or editing. So I haven't done any play before because of my language barrier. So I don't. Yeah. So so I watched the show and like I was mentioned, I couldn't tell you're trans man. That is a compliment. But so have you always been feeling different? Growing up.
Yeah, for me, it's every trans person's story is unique. Yeah. I kind of came out of the womb trans, kicking and screaming. Okay. I knew I was trans from a very early age. Unfortunately, I grew up in the 90s, so there wasn't any resources or even awareness. Trans men didn't even really exist. We had maybe one or two in media, and it was very limited to even see trans mask folks. So, I've grown through that experience and been really intentional about being visible as a trans man because we got to show up and show our story and really tell about what we're going through so we can create these resources. Right. Yeah.
So when you came out, how do your family or friends respond to that?
Oh, well, for me, it's been definitely a challenge. I came out to my family about 16 years old, and it didn't really go too well. I left home afterwards, and I've been on my own pretty much ever since with any blood-related relatives. Recently, I did reconnect with my aunt, who is in New York, which is amazing. Someone I connected with actually at the age of 20. I didn't even know she existed. And she's so queer-friendly. And it's so beautiful because she originally was married to a man when I first met her. And through a lot of conversation that we had, she actually discovered her own sexuality in that process. So now I'm an elder even to my aunt. And she calls me, and it's so crazy because she's like dating all these girls and asking advice. And I'm like, you just came out. What do you mean you have a date on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday? Like, what is going on in New York? So it's just been this ever-evolving stage for me. And, again, I haven't had the direct family, but I've been able to build my own family through community.
Yeah, that's exactly. Because oftentimes when we put ourselves out there, music or even video projects, outsider will make some comments, negative comments, and usually our response to is like, you need to open your mind, be open, because you never know, maybe one of those days, somebody colleague, friends, or family might came out, and then, So, also, what about your music experience? Do you always have passion towards music?
Music has healed my soul. Music is my biggest passion. I originally was a geek in school. I didn't go to parties or anything. I stayed and I learned how to play as many instruments as possible. I got into electronic music at the age of 14. I was lucky enough to do that through high school. I went to the magnet program, actually. I was able to get in through that through music. And music has been a saving grace for me. It's been something so important to really telling my story while at the same time creating melodies and sounds and lyrics that really represent what I'm going through. And it's so transformative to create a song and listen back to it. And I'd almost forget that I'm the one singing to the lyrics because I can relate to the singer so much because it's telling my story. And it's hard to find music like that for us.
Yeah, because LGBTQ love stories. I invite Shane to write a song for us. We might include it in the end of the show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was I love the song. So it's called Bloodline, right?
Yeah, Bloodline.
Is that related to what you just mentioned?
Yeah,
with your family?
yeah. That was exactly what that was related to. The experience that I had with having to learn that I had to let go of family and the pain that caused through the bloodline experience, but also realizing at the same time that the family that I can build doesn't necessarily have to be through my bloodline. I can again build it outside with community.
Yes. We talk about family and community. I went to your wedding.
Yes, you did.
And
one of only 20 people that were invited. No, there's people that are still mad that didn't get invited.
Are you serious?
Yes, yeah.
I'm so honored. And actually, that was still up to today. That's the only wedding I went for in our community.
Yeah,
yeah. So it's very unique, and we all had a good time. And so now you're building your own family now, right?
Yeah.
So how's the journey so far?
The journey has been great. You know, I've been with my wife for 17 years now. I am building my career. I am building, the foundation that I'm working with, which is Invisible Men, which is, specifically for trans masculine folks. I'm working with the city with a lot of good changes. And, through a lot of the things that I have been able to experience, whether good or bad, I can always see that there's something that we're building in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about the city. You have a story to share. It's very. I saw it when I saw it last year when you posted. It's very heartbreaking because everyone in our community does go to those venues, restaurants, bars.
Yeah.
And it can actually happen to any of us.
Yeah.
So, would you mind, share what happened? Like from the very beginning, were you there with friends? Were you on a date? Like, not date with your wife, or what happened? Like,
yeah. Well, I first of all want to just thank you for creating a platform to tell this story because it's been quite tragic, honestly. Let me take this hat off so we can have a little serious moment here so that folks can understand the importance of the story. But it was a really interesting story, and I can kind of give you somewhat information. Some of it I have to kind of keep because it is still an active investigation.
Okay,
but
sure.
I can give you some information that I work really hard in the community, and I don't go out often. And when I did finally decide to go out, this unfortunately happened to me. And through this happening to me, with the club, with the sheriffs, with the hospital, with the city, with the media, with everything that's been involved, it's been quite interesting, learning, traumatic, beautifully painful ride to experience because at the same time something horrible happened to me, but I was able to realize who around me supported me and will show up for me. I went out one night. I went to a local West Hollywood bar. It was, after work. It was just supposed to be just a little casual thing to hang out with. And unfortunately, it looks like someone slipped something in my drink. It's something that I'd never experienced before because, Shelby, you know me for years and years and years. I'm not the type to get, intoxicated, passed out.
Right.
I'm pretty responsible when it comes to that. And I've never experienced this in my life. I went into that bathroom and I completely passed out. I lost vision, which was so scary to me because, I've been drunk before, we've all been young and made mistakes, but in this particular case and the reaction that my body experienced is something I've never experienced. So there's no doubt in my mind that I was drugged just because of how fast the reaction was.
So you sitting at a bar, you went alone or with friends?
I was with coworkers, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were drinking, you were having fun, relaxed, and then you feel something. That's why you went to the bathroom?
Yeah, so I was just, that's the crazy thing is, I mean, I've even been able to review some of the footage of me in the bar right before entering the bathroom, and I'm, wide awake, laughing, joking, fully, coherent, doesn't look like I'm stumbling in any way, shape, or form. And the moment that I hit the bathroom stall and opened up the stall, all of a sudden I couldn't breathe and I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. It was like everything shut down on me in a way that I had never experienced in my entire life. The only words that I could say out of my mouth were just the words 911 because I couldn't even think beyond that because I knew it was so serious what was happening to me. I thought I was dying.
So that's the last thing you remember, right?
Well, partially. I mean, I did get woken up in the midst of that while I was still in the bathroom by a security. I remember he was tapping me on my left shoulder saying, come on, buddy, you're just drunk. You don't want to wake up. And all I could say were the words 911, 911. And he kept tapping me saying, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then I finally screamed 911 as my last gasp of energy that I could get out. And then I passed out. And the next time that I woke up, I'm in the back of an emergency vehicle throwing up into a bag. And I have no idea how I've gotten there. I can't, I can barely see. My vision's completely, gone. I'm just confused on how from one second I was fine to the next second I'm in the back of an ER.
So I remember reading some article or some reporting.
Yeah.
You were passed out in a bathroom for an hour.
30 minutes. 30 minutes. We were able to determine that it was 30 minutes.
And then you were unclothed.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
okay, go ahead.
The horrible thing about it is, how security treated me afterwards didn't really get noted in the police report properly. The detective didn't even interview the manager that was with the security. She only interviewed the one security guard from the club, and no one else was interviewed that day. Meanwhile, in that same police report, that same detective asked me what I had for breakfast in such detail about my day and was going through every excruciating detail. But when it came to, looking back at the report that she submitted, writing about the security, I mean, it was barely a paragraph.
So just remind our audience, this is in one of the LGBTQ friendly.
Yeah, probably the most friendliest,
club
it's
West Hollywood.
West Hollywood.
So they're not like discriminating in a way of because
you would think,
right?
You would think it'd be a safe space, especially with how many queer people you see attending the venues, the advertisement that goes along with it. The city has tried to do a lot about really including transgender people into the nightlife. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people in community that are not trans that are in the city of West Hollywood that don't believe that people like me are even a part of the statistical data of West Hollywood, that we're, a tiny fraction, so to speak.
Yeah. And I understand where you're coming from, and tiny fraction, and also maybe we're not as a financial ability,
economic
as a consumer.
Power.
Yeah. So maybe that's also why. So you say you went in the sorry.
No, you're no problem. It's really intense. So I'll keep walking you through. So I was in the back of an ambulance, and then I was taken to the local hospital there, which is the hospital that if you are drugged at any bars or any Pride or anything, this is going to be the hospital that you're sent to.
Okay.
And unfortunately, through my experience, we discovered that that hospital doesn't provide rape kits.
Oh.
And that hospital is the main hospital that folks are sent to in this area. And the closest place is 45 minutes away. And most of our community, doesn't have access to even go to another place when they've already dealt with so much trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so when you woke up or when you conscious,
Yeah.
did they tell you what happened to you, or
So that's the horrible thing as well. I remember being pushed into the hospital on the gurney cart. Couldn't see still. I could hear, I'm assuming probably a nursing manager or someone was asking me questions. You know, the typical questions when you're being administered and being shifted from the gurney that you are on the ambulance truck onto an official gurney for the hospital. I felt them like grab me up. And the whole time I was repeating to them, I've been drugged. I only had a few drinks. I don't understand what happened. I don't understand. And then I, pass back out. I wake back up again. They throw a phone on my chest. Somehow, some way, even through everything, I was able to call my wife and tell her where I was because she was at home. It was like 2 a.m. when I actually got to make contact with her. I called her, I told her where I was, and then I passed back out again. And the next time that I woke up, she was there by my bed. And I woke up in a gown that was too small for me in a hallway with an IV cart attached to me, a crash cart. And I had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I asked the nurse, please, can you remove the IV? I really got to go to the bathroom. She pulls the IV out and I head over to the bathroom. And I stand up and I get off the gurney and I'm hobbling along. And I just see the door and I'm heading towards the door. My wife goes, where is your underwear? So the gown that I'm wearing in this hallway in this hospital where people are just walking through, my whole, back is exposed. And I come and I sit back down on the bed and I start shaking and I didn't really know what was going on. And I asked them, I said, did you test anything? Did you test anything? And they said, oh, we couldn't test anything for you. It's already been too late.
What?
And no, we were very confused about that as well. Unfortunately, that same hospital doesn't do testing for, right. It's crazy. It's crazy because you would think this area that is so, pride friendly and all of this, that the resources would be there. But unfortunately, the hospital you're sent to isn't even trained to be able to handle this. You have to be lucky enough for a nurse to, it has to be like a violent rape for them to really notice that you need to have a referral. And as I started shaking and they were telling me, oh, there's nothing we can do. I already was feeling so dysphoric about my body. I mean, as a trans person, being in the hospital is my worst fear, especially passed out.
Okay, so they made a conclusion.
Yeah, that I was just drunk.
No, I mean, in the hospital, they didn't make a conclusion you were sexually assaulted?
Not at all, but here's the crazy thing. So after I asked the nurse, I said, can I get some water? And she said she's going to get me water. She never gets me water. My wife then goes and says, hey, he needs some water. And I'm just starting to kind of shake there from anxiety or from whatever they gave me. Yes. The doctors that said most likely it was ketamine that they gave me. And my body was just in such shock. I just wanted to go home. And all I could say was just, I want to go home. I want to go home. And the nurse didn't even ask me anything. She just looked me and oh, you want to go home? Okay, go pay your copay right over there and you can go home. Wow. And, I'm still in shock. My wife, I mean, I've never been to the ER. This is not something that we knew how to even handle. We weren't even thinking. We were just trusting that everybody was doing the right part. And that, all I needed to do was know that I was stable and I was okay and everybody else was going to do their job. And I just had to worry about being okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I put my clothes back on that were hanging off the gurney in a plastic bag. And my clothes were sopping wet down to my socks. And I said to my wife, so I said to my wife, I said, do you think that I sweated this hard? That when I passed out, that maybe... And then she goes, but it's down in your socks. And then and I was also wearing a bomber jacket. The water was on the outside of the bomber jacket. So we were like, and my clothes were completely drenched all the way from head to toe. And it was so confusing because why were my clothes wet? And I had a nurse actually tell me, well, if you were in the ER and they are administering you and you're passed out, most of the time they cut through your clothes. They don't slowly remove your clothes.
Yeah.
My clothes had no damage to them at all, as if someone just kind of gently slipped them off. There was no rips to my jeans. There was no rips to my shirt, not even my collar. There was nothing. out of the ordinary. There was this sticky substance that was on my neck and my chest that I felt. And then there was some substance that was in my genital area and substance that was on my chest.
Yeah.
Whoever assaulted me attempted to remove my grafted nipple through my top surgery. I'm still actually trying to find a surgeon right now because unfortunately through the victims fund, a lot of these surgeons are afraid they're actually not going to be paid out properly by the victims fund. So I'm actually having to fight to find a surgeon, even though I have an approved application to pay, $70,000 worth of surgery. I can't even find a surgeon to take care of that. Yes. My genitals, unfortunately, it looks like they pulled on the left labia to the point where now it permanently hangs out in a way that has never done that before. When I got home, I started to bleed. And I started to bleed. And at the time, I wasn't taking testosterone. So I knew that my cycle was coming, but it wasn't for about 2 weeks. But I do know that if I have any kind of penetrative sex, especially because I don't do it often, it'll trigger my period to come sooner. So I was bleeding and I was so confused and I felt this moisture here and this moisture there. And I'm sitting there and I'm ruminating about the fact that, no, the hospital would have known. They would have taken care of it. They would have told me. They would have something. Would have this. They would have that. And something kept telling me, no, something's off, something's off, something's off. My body was feeling weird. It was almost like my body was numb from here down because I was in such shock.
And this is already after you went home?
Yeah, this is when I went home. It only took me about 25 minutes to get home from the hospital. And I'm sitting in the bathroom and I call my best friend Lucky and I say, I've been raped and I need help and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And it was so unique because, I've helped community for years and usually I do know what to do. But in that situation, I was so overwhelmed and he helped me. He told me to go to a clinic so that I can get Plan B so that I can, prevent any kind of pregnancy. He helped me get PEP medications to prevent any kind of HIV infection. I had to take the medication for about 28 days. It made me extremely sick. I couldn't walk for about 2 weeks properly.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah. And then I slowly and surely started healing my body. I stayed home and I went back to work only about a month and a half later, back on the clock. Because for me, the job that I had at the time was an STI clinic and it meant so much to me to show up, to really create those resources for people and really show them that empathy that I didn't receive at the hospital. And I did a really good job so much so that there are people on Yelp that were actually reviewing me on an STI clinic, which I don't think anybody has ever reviewed an STI clinic on Yelp, but they were like, Shane is amazing. He took care of me. Yes. And that made me so proud and doing that work. And some other stuff that I've worked on was working with the city because I do sit on the transgender advisory board. I do have a relationship with the council members. When the incident did happen, I reported it directly to the city. After that, it was discovered. Well, there's a little more. I don't want to skip ahead, but basically after I went to the clinic and I got my Plan B and my PEP medication, I went directly to the sheriff's station in West Hollywood to report the crime. Right. I walked in. I'm still bleeding at this point. It's only been, maybe 24 hours or not even, maybe 12 hours since the incident has happened. And that deputy refuses to allow me to make a police report.
What?
Yeah.
What is it? What did he say? What is
it? Was a she. The thing is I don't want to disclose the name so much because I have to be careful with that. But what I can tell you is that I walked into that office and I asked for a rape kit. And that detective said, rape kit? You don't need a rape kit. Yeah. And it wasn't because, I don't know really what it was because I still to this day, there's been explanations afterwards where the city now has gone into not quite an investigation, but more of like a question of why wasn't that report taken? And the excuse from the sheriffs were it was an overtime officer that didn't have proper training. But here's the crazy thing. So that same lieutenant or captain was pulled back into another meeting by a city council member and said, what's the difference between the training for sheriffs that are overtime and the sheriffs that are not? And they couldn't give an answer.
Wow.
They couldn't give an answer. So why wasn't I allowed to make a police report when I was assaulted?
Yeah.
And through that experience, I started to turn over every stone that I could in the city to start finding out what was going on in this system.
Right.
And in that discovery, the sheriffs sent in a report to the city, and that report indicated that 100% since 2016, 100% of sexual assaults and druggings that happened within the city, none of them brought charges.
Wow. That's crazy.
100%. I mean, in the history of any community worker, I mean, in any industry, nobody says 100%. Everybody says, oh, it's a 99.9% guarantee. These statistics are 100%.
Yeah.
So something's going on.
Yeah,
and,
something.
you know, I've really learned that there's a system in place that is purposely keeping folks from really reporting and understand what's really going on. And it's really interesting because, you know, with Jeffrey Dahmer being so popular right now,
I was just going to say.
you know, and the way that the sheriffs treated that whole situation where they knew who he was, they knew he was assaulting and killing people, but they didn't care because they were black and brown folks. There's also another individual in the city of West Hollywood that was just sent to federal prison named Ed Buck. I don't know if you know anything about that story. Yeah. It's very similar to Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, I don't think Ed Buck consumed body parts, but what he did do was he drugged homeless black men in his apartment and raped them. And the sheriffs didn't start getting involved until the second person was found dead in their apartment. Yeah. It took so many community activists like Jasmine Koenig who came in and really created a voice to make change. And, you know, her story has inspired me in so many ways to continue the effort and the work, because the city of West Hollywood can be a beautiful thing, but there are some folks that are still in power that are causing a lot of pain for people. Yeah.
So, so you also reported onto the media, news, and what are their response? Are they more supporting?
Well, here's the crazy thing too. I went to all of the local media in West Hollywood because I used to do advertising for them, so I knew all the owners of you know, different media sources, and I tried to get them to interview me to tell my story.
Yes,
some of them, you know, took my story, but none of them ran the story at all.
Wow.
And none of them have run any of the stories that are going on in West Hollywood right now. It's almost been this weird blackout because there's been these city council meetings. And I mean, you can go to my TikTok right now. You can watch some of them. You can watch some of them on Instagram. And you will see, you know, sheriffs admitting horrible things, like that their training includes flags when it comes to LGBT folks. That's their extensive training on learning how we work as a community. And the media, in the local media, just has not reported on it at all. And, you know, I realize that a lot of those local media sources are supported by the advertisement of those bars. So it's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you. So I've had to go outside of West Hollywood to make connections with media, because the local media won't report. But, you know, luckily the national media sees the importance of this, because this story is beyond me. I mean, my story is one of maybe 1,000, maybe 100,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, all lives matter, trans life matter, black life matter. And many victims don't speak out because they're afraid.
Yeah.
And or if they maybe try to speak out, like go to those resource or media, and they just get shut down. Remember, you just mentioned on the show how many times that neighbor tried to report Jeff Dahmer, and nobody give a damn.
Yeah.
And the neighbors, you know, the neighbor just has to keep trying.
Yeah.
But a lot of victims, they probably just give up. you know, and so that means the voice is quiet. And the, you know, the crime or the murderer will continue to do what they want to do.
Just walking free on the streets, you know, and it's risking other citizens' lives.
Right. So that's why what you're doing, I'm very, you know, proud of you. I know it's very hard. I kind of experienced some sort like somebody tried to drug me as well before, but wasn't like in your degree. So I know how that feel, and I know how internal you feel, not just physical. It can break you, you know. If some people might just do something way stupid or something bad. You know?
Well, luckily I haven't done anything stupid because I have a lot of beautiful people around me that are guiding me.
That's good.
And that's what's keeping me from doing stupid things. But you know, I'm turning this pain into power, and it is hard. Right. Even after going on the news and basically telling the world, "Hey, I've been raped." I went to the local grocery store by my house, and two guys that were like, you know, cisgender kind of probably, you know, straight guys recognized me, and they started laughing at me and kind of following me in the store. Yeah. I mean, because some people, it's really horrible, especially as a male victim of rape. People don't take it seriously. People have literally questioned, because I'm a big guy, how could that happen to you? No, not you. No way. That could never happen to you. I mean, even so much so that I fell for that I was in a space and I could never even fathom that happened to me because I am a big guy. But unfortunately, you know, being trans doesn't really prevent you from that type of assault. You know, if someone wants to target you because you're trans and they visibly know you're trans, and I mean, I'm pretty trans all over the city of West Hollywood. You know, so I'm very vocal. So it's the challenge of finding your voice while, you know, facing a lot of these systems that are built into shutting our voices up.
Yeah. And also, like I mentioned, this can happen to anyone. It's just not trans or LGBTQ members. So I did also saw some news that you were in recently, and they say they're going to do something about it, coming up with some sort of test strip. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. So the amazing thing is, through my incident, there's been a lot of advocacy. A lot of community has jumped in and taken the lead as well. After coming out with my story, we've actually been able to get test strips for the city of West Hollywood for drinks. So folks can actually test their drinks while they're, you know, in the bars. Unfortunately, you know, the bar that I was assaulted in and some of the other bars are refusing to actually take these test strips in their bars.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm not. I'm so serious. So much so that one of them said to a council member directly, "Never in my bar will I have that. It's a liability."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I know.
Wow.
That's why I'm speaking out now, because I've seen so much, and I love the city of West Hollywood so much. I'm probably one of the only current appointed city officials that I know of who has probably lived through different economic statuses in the city of West Hollywood, where when I was a young kid, I was busking on Santa Monica Boulevard with my guitar and a cup back when I was homeless, trying to make money for a motel room. And at the same time, I've been a board member for LA Pride. I've been an appointee for the city official. I've worked, you know, in health services for the city. I've worked in mental health services. I've worked in community services. And I've really seen a well-rounded idea of what the potential of the city of West Hollywood can be. And most folks, when something like this happens, they want to throw their hands up in the air. But for me, I see this as a turning point for the city of West Hollywood. I see this as a moment for them to shine, a moment for more voices to be brought in, and more people to be brought in.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the positive side of coming out from this tragedy. And also, like you're gonna have some meeting coming up tomorrow.
Yes. So I'm going to be going to the West Hollywood City Council meeting. I'm going to speak out again. I think it's really important that we stay on it and we stay consistent.
Right.
Because these council members, the way the system works, you can't just show up once. You have to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that neighbor in the Dahmer, story, they probably called 100 times before, anybody even noticed anything. So my goal is just to stay consistent, not get burnt out, and get folks to understand that they can make a change too, even if it's just digitally joining along or liking a post or sharing a post and extending that platform so that other people can see that story and see really what's going on, so we can really find a solution to this problem.
Yeah. Updates, anything going on that case?
Unfortunately, I have become another statistic.
Oh.
Just like every other case that was in the area. Eventually the information was submitted to the DA. And, the DA rejected it just like every other case. Not enough evidence, even though, there's enough evidence, but it just seems to be a thing that happens, especially with trans men. I mean, if you look at what happened to Banco Brown in San Francisco, they won't even release any of the information from the Walgreens where he was shot by a security guard, and the DA refuses to look at it. Wow. So it's pretty interesting how trans men are getting treated, especially by law enforcement and the system itself. So it's kind of why I wrote this book.
Yeah, so I think that happened for you, and then it kind of inspired you to do more this year. That's why you. Yeah. I want to mention we have this crown here because you just recently got elected for Mr. Pride, LA Pride 2023, right?
I certainly did.
Yeah, congratulations.
It was actually a group effort. I just want to say shout out to Group B on TikTok. Thank you so much for fundraising. Y'all are amazing. Just want to make sure I tip my hat to everybody that fundraised. I actually used TikTok to fundraise and was able to achieve enough to be Mr. LA and Mr. WeHo Pride. And they're going to actually ride me around in a Mustang topless car or convertible of some sort, and they're going to parade me around, and I'm going to have to touch my pearls and screw in the light bulb. I've learned all the techniques, how to be a proper gentleman.
Yes, I especially in Southern LA, I think you're the perfect person to be. Otherwise, who else, right?
Right. I was born and raised here. I mean, honestly, being Mr. LA Pride is probably something that I didn't realize was a dream of mine. But now that I've done some of the work and I've been part of the mix of it all, it feels so natural to be in this position. You're right. I love LA in so many different ways and shapes and forms, and it's great to represent it.
Okay, good. So now we're going to dive into your book because I'm very inspired because you are doing the music, you are doing advocate for trans community, DJing, acting, and now you have this book. Yeah. So what inspired? I know you mentioned that your case kind of inspired you to write this book, but is there any other reason? Because I kind of flipped through earlier. You have so many different pictures and then also mentioned a lot of different trans men in this book. So can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Definitely. So for me, this book was a work of love for many different reasons. It's super cathartic. I wrote it in about 3 weeks. And the stories that I'm telling are stories of transmasculine individuals that are not told, while simultaneously telling the education of what it takes for trans men to actually receive rights. And on top of it, it kind of gives a manifesto of some of the things and people that I've met throughout history, especially here in LA, and some of the untold stories, some of the heroes, icons, and mentors that I've run into. And especially, even where I grew up as a DJ at Oxwood, that's where we met. So I made sure to write about Oxwood.
Oxwood, because we mentioned Hamburger Mary in this show a lot. But Oxwood is actually the longest run, longer than Hamburger Mary's Jamie's. Yeah. And I started Hamburger Mary, and then the second place is Oxwood. Yeah. So kudos to Laura G. she's the one promoting
Shout
it,
out.
and she do it like 10 years, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was about 10 years.
So and then I was able to meet a lot of different people on the valley side.
Yeah.
And I did some events for her too, and you were the DJ. So it was very, very community oriented place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but too bad the location, I heard a developer bought it, and so that's why we stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually what I'm talking about in my book, is kind of how the patriarchy kind of takes over spaces, especially trans spaces and lesbian bars. Because for me particularly, I mean, before I identified as trans, I did have an experience as a lesbian living through that world. And most folks don't know this, but the Oxwood was actually one of the oldest lesbian bars in the entire country. It's where I learned my grounds as a DJ and community, and how I learned how to really be a part of the community in that way. And it was really challenging to kind of watch it fall apart in the way that it did, just purely because of finances.
Right.
I mean, I talk about it in the book. One of the highest grossing nights there was actually the trans night when I was a DJ. And that's when the bar made the most money. Right? No, it's okay. No, get your flowers. You deserve them. We worked really hard on that. And it was a beautiful time. I mean, remember that? Like that to me almost seems like a fever dream when, we would come out from the back patio and there'd be smoke flying everywhere. And then I would get into the DJ booth and I would just play some crazy set, and it would just go from one place to the other. And we'd have such beautiful times there. And, that's, again, one reason why I wanted to pay homage to a lot of the stories that built me as a trans man, while simultaneously really explaining to people what the patriarchy really has done to trans masculine individuals. Because folks like myself kind of get looked at as, oh, well, he passes and he's got a wife and he does this and he's done that and he's done that. And somehow I've escaped the patriarchy. But it's really quite the opposite, because I still struggle with it in ways that folks might not perceive. But as soon as I open my mouth and start telling you some of the things that I've been through, it all starts to click for people, because as soon as I expose to people I'm trans, all that privilege just goes right out the window. People automatically, I've been talked down to like I'm a child. I've been talked down to like I don't have 20 years of experience doing certain things, I mean, I practically came out of the womb as an advocate. And it's really interesting how this book, I hope, brings a conversation. And I wanted to design it, something nice like the Tom Ford book. So I put a little extra effort into it with the photos and the quality of it, so that it really hits people and ends up on coffee tables and starts discussions about not just trans people, but people in general. And that's really what the conversation of the book is. I'm using my identity as a trans man as a vehicle to kind of talk about the intersectionalities of society as a whole. Because trans men themselves, I mean, we face kind of the shitty end of both sticks sometimes. We've got to man up when we got to, do things and have those expectations, while simultaneously we're told to sit down and be quiet. And that glass ceiling that everybody kind of alludes to that has been crashed is actually twice as thick. I've not broken that glass ceiling. I'm still hustling as many years as I have been to make sure my bills are paid. I don't have some kingdom to sit on or some great thing. I mean, that's why I'm creating the merch that I'm creating and the books that I'm creating, so that people actually have tangible things. Right. But it wasn't an easy journey to get to that point, and it's a lot of privilege, even with what I carry, and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering that I've been through. But again, that's why this is really cathartic for me, that multiple things are kind of happening simultaneously, because for the last couple of years, I've been through the ringer in a way that I feel like my ancestors' spirit, everyone was testing me and teaching me. I even have a new spirit guide that has been helping me, Blossom C. Brown. She's shout out. I want to make sure to shout out to Blossom, because she's really been speaking wisdom into me and guiding me. And I'm learning to be less stubborn, listen more and just be open and receptive, because most folks don't know quite the trauma I've experienced even showing up. I mean, coming from a cult as a kid through Scientology, and then transitioning and then trying to be in the performance world and the activism world, and all of the layers that I have to face on a daily is just, it's a lot of challenges. And it's just nice to be in this position where folks are seeing trans men and really giving them visibility. So,
yeah. That because we all been through some sort of transition and struggles, including myself and many other people guests on the show.
Yeah.
So I have an open mind when it comes to certain things like politics, because I normally on this show I don't like to talk about politics because to me it's very divided people. But since like I mentioned in the beginning, since our community has been the target of somebody's politic agenda, so that I feel this show has to have the responsibility to speak out, to tell a story like what Shane just said, because mainstream people probably just see, oh, this person, they, let's say from, oh, this man just dressed this to try to go to the woman's bathroom or something. Or maybe this man tried to go influence somebody's kids or something in a negative way to their eyes. So I feel, just talking about the bathroom, if you're on YouTube, you can look at Shane, look at me. Let's say if Shane go to a female bathroom, I'm sure he might get arrested.
I'd probably get beat up.
Yes,
and to be honest, I understand the reaction, because if you were to see a guy like me walk into the women's restroom, you would automatically assume some sort of nefarious situation.
Mm-hmm. And as me, I might get in trouble.
Well, for you, it's even different, because I think it's even more susceptible to violence in a different way. I think we kind of have our double-edged sword in the way that we'd be perceived in those moments. But either way, we'd be facing violence, the two of us.
Yeah, so that's why I feel a lot of Main Street people's perspective. They have their own belief, which, okay, that's fine. I respect that. But I think they should open their, zoom out and see really what's going on. They probably have an image of a trans person, what they look like, because I'll probably show a text message that I have. I'm recently, go on a dating site, and guys who saw my picture, and then they then read my profile.
Yeah,
many times happens that way. And then when I maybe try to meet, and I have to making sure they know first, and then I say, "Really, you are trans? I cannot believe it. You used to be a man," something like that.
Yeah.
And my response is, well, because our society kind of give a misimage or a misunderstanding of a trans person, woman or man, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Have a stereotype. So that means it make people only seeing one side of it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to politics, I just want to give it this disclaimer, okay? Because I don't want to sound, because many people already kind of suggest me I should, talk about politics, and I don't want to sound like contradict to myself. Yeah. So I've been kind of not battling, but kind of think, where should I take this direction? Because I certain things, like I'm a pro business, I'm a pro choice, pro freedom. That may be on one side, and then but I'm also into rights, human rights, trans rights. Okay, so I'm kind of struggling myself, and then I all of a sudden it hits me. I said, wait a minute, why do I have to choose one side? And this is what happened to our society. They've kind of make us to choose one side and dislike the other side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think so that's why I'm gonna proceed this more neutral way, in the middle. So back to what we're gonna talk about. Okay, so trans rights. So you see a lot of politic climax going on. Have you got any different treatments affected in your personal life?
Yeah. So right now, politics and legislatively, trans people are being attacked, almost a form of legal genocide. especially actually transmasculine individuals. And that's kind of an unknown story that folks are not talking about, because simultaneously, folks are attacking rights on HRT, access to healthcare, access to EMTs if we're shot, and not even giving us health, care to actually survive that gunshot wound. Right. Simultaneously, you're seeing rhetoric increase from certain politicians that are actually calling for things like our genocide. And then on top of it, you've got the issue of abortion rights, which most folks are looking at that as just cisgender women. But a lot of folks, including myself, actually need access to that, because especially with my incident, if I didn't have things like Plan B and the care that I needed, I could possibly have bled out. I could have possibly be, carrying a child right here. Right. There's so many different layers to what's going on legislatively. And unfortunately, because of the way that cisgender women are treated in this country, that trickles down to trans men as well. And that patriarchal, hierarchical structure still exists within our community and as the greater world at large too. And it just seems to be quite unique, because folks will tend to, again, look at folks like myself or other folks that are, passing and living these lives, but they're not really diving deep into what's actually affecting us. And it's really unfortunate that conversation isn't being had. And that's a big reason, why I wanted to write this book, is to really bring the awareness to the layers of what trans men face. Because I know that there's so many folks out there that can even look at my life and go, well, you've got this and you've got that and you've got this. But in reality, I'm still trans at the end of the day. There's still people that want to harm me just because I exist, no matter what privilege or access I have. And that's kind of unfortunate, because we even see folks in our own community that are kind of siding with some really unfortunate rhetoric that is really harmful to our community, in this idea that somehow it's going to prevent them from being targeted by these groups. But throughout history, this book talks about 1933, the Sexology Institute in Germany. That's actually a big reason why it was released on May 6th, is because that was the day that the books were burned. And I wanted to write a book and release a book that same day to kind of reset the energy inertia for our community. And all of these subject matters throughout time, we've already had them written down about where we were going, women's rights, trans rights, gay rights. We already had a beautiful history, and it was erased by the Nazis. And what we're seeing with rhetoric today is exactly the same patterns. Exactly the same. You can follow it so much so that we're allegedly in stage 8 of genocide right now. We're 2 steps away from folks actually. Doesn't matter if you're a trans Republican, like someone like Caitlyn Jenner, who thinks that she can avoid her privilege and access and, kind of make folks feel a certain way that they're connecting with her because of her certain views. But at the end of the day, those folks are going to come for you too. They're already coming for folks that are in interracial marriages. They're already coming for so many different rights simultaneously. And if we actually take a look again at what happened in 1933 with the brown shirts, is what they were called, it's the same thing that's going on with these patriot guys that are, running around with masks on and harming people. And it's so concerning to me, because to me, I love America. I'm very much an American.
Yes.
To a degree, even in my advocacy, I can see it as a form of serving my country, with serving and fighting for rights in the way that I have, and the sacrifices that I've put in. It's so much. But at the end of the day, I don't see my access to healthcare, my access to employment, my access to housing as a threat to anyone else's access. I feel like somehow this narrative has been brought down onto the trans community as kind of a scapegoat, especially economically where we are now as a country. We're in a lot of dire moments. The debt ceiling, everything that's happening.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I was going to say, seems like every time there's a election coming up, they want to target a minority group.
Yeah. Folks that can't fight for themselves.
And then I think it's the purpose of doing that is redirect people's attention. Because like you say, we have debt ceiling, and we have recession, we have lay off, and we might
AI is a threat,
AIs,
you
and the
know.
dollar might devalue, and we have foreign policy problems. See all those
We've
people
got
don't.
Russia. We've got so many different things
China.
going on, you know.
People don't
I
want.
love how you said we're not going to get political, and I just went so hard for you, huh? You're like, I'm sweating right now. Why are you doing this to me, Shane? This is what I do, Shelby. I've learned to start talking and tell my story because I honestly, you've seen me. I've been very professional and quiet for many years, but I've also learned a lot in that position, and now I feel like it's time for us to start speaking up.
Yeah, and I see you wearing a LA hat.
Yes, I am. I'm doing that, you know, because the Dodgers actually made the right decision, and I'm very proud of you as Mr. LA Pride. Thank you very much for bringing the sisters back, because I was born and raised here. I love baseball, and it broke my heart to see that, and I'm so happy to see that that correction has been made for our community, because we want to celebrate. Look, we like hot dogs and beer too.
Yeah, so since we are on the branding or on the organization topic,
yes.
So I want to mention about the swimming sports team. When I heard this story, and I actually on a news diet since February, but I do know what's going on.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, the second, I forgot her name, the cis woman.
I forget her name.
Yeah,
too.
But that
don't
woman,
me.
yeah, that is okay.
Sorry.
But that woman, that sports lady, woman came out and she was crying on TV. She was like feeling her number one, crown got stolen, blah blah. And she said she worked so hard, blah blah blah. But when I heard that, my thinking is, but the trans woman athlete also work hard. You don't know, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure she did work hard too.
Yeah.
And my reaction to that is they all compete together, right? If this individual is not happy with whoever in the competition, she should speak out in the beginning at the first place, not after she lost and become second place.
Does that make sportsmanship, sense? Honestly, yes. Right there. That's literally a bad loser. And I've played sports a long time. That is not how you do it at all. Genetic testing alone when it comes to sports. And this is one thing that folks want to sit here and debate this, that, and the other about bone structure and all of that. The rigorous amount of testing that goes on to put these folks into professional sports is ridiculous. I mean, they can't have certain vitamins because it'll test as they're having some sort of advantage. So the fact that this individual was so upset just because she lost, it's not, that's not how sports used to run.
Right.
If anything, I mean, you want to talk about all American sports, what happened to being a good sport?
Yeah, so that's what I feel people are, just follow what the news said.
Yeah.
And then they don't have their own critical thinking. See, if she's not happy, she'll speak up in the beginning, even before the game starts, not after. Right?
Yeah.
And then what if she happened to be number one? Would she be still doing this? Right?
Exactly. It's selective. It's very selective and convenient how folks are using that trans identity to somehow escape any accountability when it comes to maybe their own flaws. Maybe she trained harder. You have to realize as trans people, I'm sure you feel this way. I know I feel this way. Many folks I've talked to, we all feel like we have to go 10 times as hard. So it's not a surprise to me that trans athletes are excelling, but also you really take a look at the records, trans women are actually not as excelling as much as they are, because that narrative that they're creating isn't actually true. But if you actually take a look at someone in the trans masculine community, the boxer, guess what? His last fight, he knocked the guy out clean. They had to stop the fight. So where's the narrative that, women are weak and they can't transition and have this, strength? It's all just this rhetoric that is causing confusion. And when in reality, like scientifically, we were all born women at the end of the day. I mean, really, it's just some chemicals that happen in the second trimester. Some things grow. But as someone who takes testosterone, I can tell you, like, we're all pretty much the exact same thing with just different egos and problems that we carry. That's really what it is.
Different experience make who we are. So misconception. I feel like because in Florida, the drag show community got attacked.
Yeah.
This is also, I I think it's part of the misconception because we both know drag people who does drag is not identify their gender as a transgender.
No.
Yeah, they're just entertain, just like we have talk shows or comedy, stand-up comedy. So that's just part of the entertainment. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of sad that, Florida happens.
They did it purposely, actually. They're doing it purposefully, legislatively. If you really take a look at what's going on in the politics, the way things are being presented and the way that there's a certain agenda to get onto the school boards, to get into certain areas that they didn't used to touch. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting in those areas. Right. They're creating these narratives that are completely not true about our community, while simultaneously creating and stoking fear to make it seem like we're doing something, when in reality, we're like 0.1% of the population. Exactly. And the fact that you have to realize even Tennessee is spending the money they're spending to legislate maybe 3 people in the state, while there's, issues when it comes to housing, employment, roads that are, need resurfacing. Yes. There's so many more important things that these politicians could actually be doing with their time, and they're not. They're finding everything they can to distract and push it onto minority communities. And unfortunately, because the trans community doesn't have even the support within its own community of the LGBT as a whole, because, white supremacy is really interesting how it kind of plays out in our community, especially cis white gay men. I'm saying it, Shelby. Okay. I wrote it in the book, so it's already in there too. Right. But the way that power structure and their proximity to white supremacy and how they kind of navigate within the community, it's like, I'll do this, but I can't do this. I'll do that. I can't support this community because then it will take this. And it always involves money. It's really just kind of gross at the end of the day, because, that 70 cents to the dollar that women allegedly are making to the $1 of the male, that hierarchy structure, that patriarchal structure bleeds within to the LGBT community. And it's time that we actually really address it. And, I got a few chapters for you to read at the end of the book if you need any questions on what that looks like. And, you can always reach out to me on Instagram too if you have any questions.
Yes, we will. But this last time I checked, just right before the show, this book is out of stock right now.
It's out of stock, yes.
So how can people order?
So the 26th, it should be back in stock is what I was told. So you can actually go onto Amazon real quick, type in Shane Ivan Nash, my full name, and there should actually be some music available and the book available. You can get it on Kindle. I have the hard copy version here available. Also, one feature I wanted to let folks know, if you actually, for some reason, get to meet me in person at the very end of the book, I don't know if we can see it in the camera, hopefully, but I made sure to put a signature line there because I want to meet people that actually read the book and have discussions with them.
Can you sign for our show?
I can sign for your show, yes, of course.
And we're going to put it as part of our decoration. Is that okay?
Of course.
And I know you do a lot of things like musicians, DJ, advocate, and now author. Yeah. Do you have room for one more position? And this too.
One more room? Because someone on city staff said maybe I should run for city council. So maybe I might do that. And another thing about this book, this is a feature that I really do love. So I am a cannabis connoisseur. I do love some cannabis. And, the old wives' tale of watching Wizard of Oz and listening to Dark Side of the Moon, how it kind of syncs up together. Yeah. So with this particular book, there's actually a playlist on Spotify that I timed out perfectly so that when you read the book, you can listen to the music and it just goes with it. In that same kind of fashion and kind of adds an element, because my hope is to either turn this into a documentary or maybe even into a film on just discussing it and some of my life history with LA and just some of the cool people that I've met.
So I was going to ask you something.
Yes.
Because, this show is about trans community, or anything related to trans. And I feel, you mentioned about Invisible Man. So I would like to invite you to become our guest host.
I am so excited for that. You have no idea. First of all, the setup here is amazing. I love the temperature in the room. It's perfect. Joke to the sound guy. And, I love working with you and having this discussion and kind of elevating our community and really bringing folks forward, because I feel like this is a discussion we need to have right now. And I want to do it professionally. And like you said, neutrally. I know a lot of people see trans folks kind of sit into the idea of running to the Democratic Party, which to a degree we have to, because they do vote in certain ways we do. But even myself, I find myself sometimes in the middle because of the way that we're treated and put in the middle of things, but we don't actually get real services. So if there's, the left or the right, if they actually want to start being held accountable and actually show up for the trans community, maybe those decisions can change. But right now I am blue leaning just because of everything that's going on. I think it's important to vote that way. But, it always opens room for discussion for folks that are making even mistakes and holding them accountable within our own community, because we can all do better,
Yeah. At the end of the day, trans or not trans, straight or not, or gay, we all pay taxes, right?
Exactly.
We have our rights. We should be all united together.
Right.
Otherwise, the
representation or taxation without representation is in the Constitution. So we've got to actually have the representation of trans folks and that access. And, like I said, we work 10 times as hard. We have to as a community. Yes. And I feel like if we put more trans people in positions, especially in society, I think we could do a little bit better with some solutions. I can see kind of two sides of things because I've walked in both bathrooms. I know which one, they both need work in different ways, right?
Yeah, same here.
we can attest to those type of things, and we can do, build better bathrooms for everyone, that could be our first cause.
Yeah.
Toilet paper, always stocked,
Right. And especially, sometimes it is the neutral bathroom.
Yeah.
And when let's say man goes in and use the toilet, they usually have to see up and then put it down.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, to me it's kind of gross.
No, but what I will tell you is I've been using a lot more gender neutral bathrooms lately because they're in West Hollywood. Yeah. And I have to tell you, I kind of like it. And here's why. Because I think people now have to face each other a little bit more. So the bathroom is clean. So if a cute boy goes in behind you, you have to make sure you didn't pee on the toilet. And I'm telling you, I feel like it's cleaner because everybody's more intermingling with the same toilet. So there's more accountability there. Oh, John just walked out. We know he just pissed all over the floor.
Oh
I don't know. I'm kind of finding the silver lining to it because I know a lot of folks have fear in it. But it seems to be, an interesting new territory that we're discovering. It feels cleaner to me. I feel like it smells less even.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna end the show here, and if anybody have any comments or any show ideas, because Shane gonna join this show, and he's gonna bring his his side of friends or guests that he know, especially trans man community, and then we'll that's make the show more full circle, right?
Yeah.
So I thank you for coming to the show, and we look forward for your hosting of the show in next season.
Have you ever felt like you never had a place to be?
The activists and all the people yelling with bullhorns, that tiny fraction of who you really are, you do not represent the community. This is what the community looks like. This is the business.
Then it becomes the cost of a business owner to chase us and get footage. It is completely not worth our time when they call on Monday morning and ask us for footage. You got to get the AV guy to come in for $25 or $50 an hour, and already the loss becomes a real tangible other loss. It doesn't pay.
It's not fun going back to the business by yourself, especially if you're dealing with in my case, it was an older gentleman who really doesn't want to have to deal with it because they don't want to have to admit that a crime was committed. Well, you know what? This could have killed me.
Tried the best, but I couldn't get it rough. I just know it's hard, but you know you're giving up when you turn around, touch the ground, and realize there's nothing left to give for. There's nothing left to breathe. There's nothing left to do. There's nothing left for you. There's nothing left for me. There's nothing but this. Now we tell ourselves that we live between.